Welcome to Meet the Candidates 2020, a voter education program brought to you by the Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau. Our hope is that these candidate interviews and profiles will help you, the voter, understand your choices when it comes to casting your ballot in the 2020 elections. While we can all agree that an informed candidate is important, we believe informed voters make all the difference. So we ask you to arm yourself with the information necessary to make an educated choice and to make casting your vote a priority, regardless of how you do it this year, mail-in or in person. Please visit shakopee.org to find out all of the information you'll need to know about the upcoming election, including polling places and times, and a link to the Secretary of State website for mail-in voting options. Hi, and welcome to Meet the Candidates 2020, a voter education program brought to you by the Shakopee Chamber of Commerce. My name is Angie Whitcomb, and I'm joined today by candidate for City Council, James DuLaney. James, thanks so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you for having me out.
You bet. So why don't you take just a few seconds and give us an introduction of who you are?
Sure. My name is James DuLaney. I lived in Shakopee now for about 17 years with my wife for 30 years. I've raised our 3 kids here. We love the city. A lot of people call me Jim, so you'll hear James and Jim if you talk to people on the street. Background, I've did 10 years in the military. After that, or just prior to that, getting out, I did about a year and a couple of months consulting with a startup. That was really interesting. That was a fascinating time.
Sure.
Great mentors. I still keep in touch with them now. After that, I joined the company I'm working with now. I've been there about 20 years now. It's a great company. Wow, I can't say enough about my coworkers. It's a true blessing to get up every day and just be able to do something I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I know that all too well. I have a great group of colleagues at the chamber. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's really nice. Let's see. Volunteer work. State Science Fair. That's really fun to do. I don't know if you guys have even looked at that topic, but done that several years. This year it wasn't in person. Usually it's great. We have some smart kids in our state. Wow, some of the projects they present are just incredible. I look at when I was as a kid at that time, I'm like, how do you guys come up with these things? So this is really interesting. Done some STEM work, volunteer work, probably career day also.
Sure.
Wow. Volunteer with the the Father's House Church over in Burnsville. Volunteer on the media team. Been doing that now about maybe 4 years to get the service up and out on Sundays. Sure. We also rebroadcast on Thursdays and Saturdays. Other volunteer work. Politics. I actually got involved in politics, not as a candidate, but just back in 2016, I got pulled into politics. Went to my first primary, got elected to be a delegate for Scott County GOP. Got to participate in some caucuses, couple of conventions in the local area. That was fun. It gets you to meet people, get to talk to people, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Since then, I got elected to be, this is a mouthful here, Scott County GOP 55A Precinct 3 captain, which is, I think, for the last 2 years.
Okay.
My mentor for that, Anne's been fantastic. There's a lot of history there. Wow. If you get a chance to talk to her, she has a lot about the city itself. Just even political, non-political. She's really great to talk to and a great mentor. Good. That's pretty much all. I've taught some college work. Adjunct professor at a couple of universities or colleges. Sure. Did math, algebra. Did some AC circuits and some microprocessors. That was also fun, interesting. It put me on the other side of the desk talking to kids, which is really fun as far as the college students. So you know all the excuses for homework and some tests that were coming in. But it really, I could go on about that, but that was a fun time also. Great. Yeah.
Well, we're glad you're here today, and we're anxious to hear what motivated you. Why are you running for City Council in Shakopee?
Wow. Well, I didn't lose a bet, that's for sure. Why I'm running? Well, for 3 things primarily. Taxes and debt. And I don't think our voices are being heard by the existing council. We could talk about taxes and debt. Everybody, we pay taxes. If you look at it, just looking at last year's year for Shakopee, I think the report showed that they were $43 million in revenue, $53 million in expenses, $10 million gap there, and we had to make up the difference with bonds, and then everything else came out of our pocket. So that's a concern. The other piece is just, I don't think our voices are being heard by the existing council of 5 members, and 4 of them vote the same way every time. It's just in the last year alone, you can go look at the data, go to their website, pull their meeting minutes up. They vote the same way every time. The exception was two times. I think the vote was 3-2 or 2-3. I don't know what the topic was, but it's unconceivable that you can get 4 people to vote the same way every time for everything. If the other candidates, people that were here talking, you can bring us in this room and ask us, hey, how do you get from here to Mall of America? You'll get 3 or 4 different answers. Mm-hmm. So how can you get 4 people out of a city of 40,000, 30 square miles to vote the same way every time? So I don't think our voices are being heard. Specifically, if you start looking a little deeper, you look at the votes that are 4-1, mm-hmm. You'll see that those typically involve things that impact us as far as money and property. Money, speaking, coming out of our pocket, or the debt to the city, and property as far as how property within our individual neighborhoods gets used. That's a concern when you don't have your voice heard. Mm-hmm. The only exception to that has been Matt Lehman. Matt Lehman, in my mind, has been a rock star in the city council. He has fought for debt and taxes. He's also listened to our community. If you go look at the votes, anytime somebody's had a concern, he's been there listening to the community, advocating for the community. The other 4, you won't hear me speak bad about anybody on the council, anybody running, because that's just not my nature. At the end of the day, we're still neighbors. Mm-hmm. Whatever happens on November 3rd and November 4th, we're still going to pass each other in the grocery store. We're still going to see each other at the gas station and events in the area. So I won't speak bad. What I will say is I just don't like how the votes are occurring. We could ask why.
Well, that's sort of my next question. Yeah, what? Not to cut you off.
I'm sorry.
But what would you change about how the Shakopee City government works?
Wow. Get our voices heard. You can either do one of 2 things. You can either split the city up into wards, which has its own set of problems, so our voices are heard from every aspect of Shakopee. But again, you get problems there. Hate to bounce around.
No, go ahead.
Can I add one more thing in?
Yeah.
When you look at the 4-1 vote, this is kind of, I hate to steer
You're fine.
from there.
This is your interview.
If you look at that 4-1 vote, if you go back, it's aggressive growth. It's aggressive growth, and I think it's just for the sake of growing. I think we're trying to be Minneapolis and St. Paul based on a 2040 plan. And that's aggressive growth, and that is aggressive growth without balance in our development. Mm. And that's dangerous. And the reason I say that is I've lived on 2 continents. I've lived in 9 states, plus the District of Columbia, and I've seen where we're trying to get to. Mm-hmm. And once you get there, once you let that genie out of the bottle, that's where you realize, well, do we really want to get there? Do we really want to have the growth and be Minneapolis and St. Paul? No, we're losing our identity as far as Shakopee. Mm-hmm. Shakopee has a small town atmosphere. That's one of the reasons I decided to move to Shakopee. That's one of the reasons I stepped up to run, is I see that disappearing. And again, you start looking at, well, how do we slow that up? Again, I'm not anti-growth, but I think we have to have responsible growth. So that kind of goes to your first question. I'm sorry. No. Derailed it there. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that leads into the second question. What would you change about the way the Shakopee government currently runs?
Wards. If we can't get representation, if we as a community can't look at the candidates running and say, okay, we have to have a balance on the votes. We have to have people that go back and at least hear from the community. Put the community, I'm not going to say not put the community first, because everybody did step up to serve. They were voted in, so they do care about our community. But maybe we may need to go to wards. To me, that'd be the one solution. But again, sure, it has its own problems and disadvantages. So that's how I would answer the question. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'm sorry. I misread
sorry.
Your pause and jumped in. I didn't mean to do that.
My wife tells me I ramble all the time. So, I'm trying to avoid that and just kind of answer the question.
Yeah, no, you're doing great. So let me ask you this. How should the city assist those businesses that are struggling due to the COVID-19 pandemic?
Wow.
And there's many.
Really one thing, open our businesses back up. Right now, we have people laid off, people furloughed. You have businesses that are not open fully, and we can hear all different kind of reasons. We can start talking about South Dakota compared to Minnesota. But the key thing is the city can do is advocate to open our businesses back up, get us back. You can get people in the businesses. At the end of the day, that's revenue. If somebody's laid off or furloughed, they're struggling to pay their rent and their mortgage, that means they're struggling to pay their taxes to the city. So that revenue's not there. If a business can't open and operate, or a business is closing up because of the current conditions, That's revenue back to the city. So the city should be advocating to get these businesses opened up to operate the best of their ability under the current circumstances and situations. I don't see that happening. What I see is businesses going out of business. If you look at just Minneapolis, I think in the last couple months we've had 3 or 4 dozen businesses closed. We have 2 malls in foreclosure. If you look around the current area, I talked to a young lady last night. She has her own business locally. She hasn't been able to operate in the last 10 weeks, so she has now burned through her savings, and she can't open her business back up because it's clamped down. She can't do what she enjoys doing. Well, that's revenue loss to the city, but also it's her livelihood loss. So she's now looking at pursuing another job. Well, you're putting her at a disadvantage. You're hurting our community. Our city needs to step up and push, advocate to get our businesses back open, get people back to work. You know, I think we've figured out how to operate under COVID while we wait for a vaccine. It's time to get us back to work, get people out of their homes, you know, get our businesses back open so they can deliver the goods and services that we may want or may need within our city. I think that's the best approach they can take.
Great, thank you. So as Shakopee Chamber of Commerce, we are unapologetically pro-Shakopee and unapologetically pro-business. How is your agenda pro-business, and how do you see that it may differ from your opponents or others seeking to join council?
Wow. I haven't, again, you won't hear me say anything bad about my opponents either. Again, we're neighbors, and we'll see each other in the streets and so forth. I haven't looked at their campaign specifically because I work 8 to 10-hour days. And I come home, I'm focused on my campaign, which has now become a second job. I undertook this, I didn't realize it's a time burner. You get you get pulled in. But I can tell you why I'm pro-business. I'm pro-business because if you have a diverse tax base, one, it reduces our outlay, it reduces my tax. I keep pointing to my pocket because my wallet's there. It reduces our tax base. Well, the amount of taxes we're paying because we have a diversified tax base as far as bringing businesses in. So I am pro-business, with the exception of a couple of things. If we're bringing businesses in, offering them incentives, that's a detriment to, again, us as a whole for what we're paying in taxes. We're picking up the burden for those businesses coming in. I'm against that. If we're offering incentives to businesses coming in at the detriment to another business that's here that's already offering us goods and services, we're not being good neighbors to that business. And we're offering incentives for one business doing the same goods and services at the detriment of another business. So we're not being good neighbors. So we have to be good neighbors and good stewards of our finances. Now, with that being said, how do we get businesses? Well, 2 things. First, if a business coming in, is saying, okay, if I can get these incentives up front, I can, guarantee, a year or 2 years out that we'll be hiring in guaranteed jobs for the local economy that, deliver at the average or above our city wages or average what people take home. I think that that's a plus, but it has to be a win-win situation. And the numbers have to work out that is a win-win for the city. So I am, with that exception, I am that. So how do you get businesses in? Again, I am pro-business. That's pretty much it.
Okay, great.
Keep rambling.
No, that's fine.
Cut me off if I drone on a little too much.
Like I said, it's your interview, it's your time. So let me ask you this then. What role should the city have in attracting new businesses to Shakopee or helping our existing businesses expand? You kind of touched on that a little bit about being a good neighbor, but get specific. What role should the city play in that? Wow. As far as attracting the businesses in, right now we're 70% developed and most of that is industrial. I think at this point in time, a lot of businesses want to be here because they see something in our city itself. Either we're providing the workforce they need, we're providing access to transportation they may need, we may be providing on the supply chain they may need to run, or we could be just providing the facilities they need. Are we just a location? Maybe their employees see something in this area that they want to come in and for that business to come in here. So I think if you offer those businesses or at least showcase what we have as a city to offer, I think you'll get that response versus, giving up the keys to the kingdom and, offering tips and abatements and so forth. Okay, great. So with the time we have left, Mr. DuLaney, I would like you to take a look at that camera and tell the voters at home why you would like them to vote for you on November 3rd or sooner.
Oh, wow. A couple of things. The election's coming up. I would hope you would vote for me, but the key thing is just get out and vote. Even if you're voting for my opponents, just get out and vote. You can't complain on the 4th if you didn't vote on the 3rd. That's the key thing. And please go down the page, go from president to congressman to House and Senate, flip it over. We got 2 key things on the back, what we do at SPUC and what we also do with our school systems over here. They're looking for money and they're asking for a levy. So make sure you look at those. That's one of the first things. Just vote. Get out and vote or get a mail-in ballot and vote. The other thing is get out and know your neighbors. Outside of this election, one of the things I'm finding just from talking to people is we don't know each other. We kind of see each other in passing, we wave, and then we run into the garage. Get out and know your neighbors. There's fascinating people in our community. Mm-hmm. And I'm finding the more as I canvass and walk around and talk to people, we have so much, even though we're so different, you have to start seeing beneath the surface. You can't just look at somebody. You have to see beneath the surface. And the way you can do that is actually go talk to them. And I've talked to some, fascinating people, real interesting people. I've talked to, I would say young man, but he's been here since you could take a horse, or I think there was a ranch over there off of somewhere by Panera Bread, and rent a horse and literally ride it toward this direction. I've talked to somebody that's been here and they said the biggest thing that came through was 169. They thought that was, our city's great, we're growing, I've talked to people that have been here since my house was cornfields. So just take time to, outside the talking about voting, get out and know your neighbors. I think at the end of the day, you'll find out that we all want the same thing, and we all love our city. We want the best for our city. That's one of the reasons I decided to run, is I love my city and I want to see it be at its best. That's all I have. Get out and vote and get to know your neighbors.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for watching this edition of Meet the Candidates 2020.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You bet. Thank you for watching Meet the Candidates 2020, a voter education program brought to you by the Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau. Please visit our website at shakopee.org for all of the information you'll need to know leading up to the November 3rd election.